Okay, moving on to our final topic this day, which I hadn't noticed this personally. Have you guys noticed? Well, I don't want to dig into if this. I'm going to ask you guys this, but feel free not to answer. If you use any prescription drugs, have you noticed an increase lately, like in the past 10 years? No?
Not necessarily.
No.
I have asthma, so sometimes I'll use like an inhaler. But
Okay.
It's still about the same price, I guess.
I haven't noticed it either. I take one prescription drug. I've talked about it. I take finasteride. I've taken it forever. It's the one that prevents hair loss.
Yeah.
That stuff is dirt cheap. I hadn't noticed this, but news article came out that said that in the past 10 years, so since 2014, prescription drug prices are up 37%. So that's almost 40%, and that far surpasses inflation. Inflation is 19%. So drug prices have gone up double what they should have if you would base the cost on the inflation rate. And that's interesting. So why is that?
Yeah,
well,
why?
Huh?
Said, yeah, why?
So like everything, it's multifactorial. One of the biggest reasons that I found is because insurance companies are covering less.
Oh, that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, if the insurance companies aren't covering the cost of your drugs, then who gets the cost, right? They pass it on to the consumer. So what's happened with the insurance companies? Well, in the past 10 years, deductibles have doubled. So like the deductible that you have to pay before the insurance kicks in. So that's pretty notable. Copays have risen a lot. So now there's 20% left coverage. So when you buy a drug, like here's your deductible, but then there's a copay, right? You have to pay X amount of dollars. Well, that amount that you have to pay has gone up about 20%. And then now we're seeing a lot of insurance at a second tier, meaning for certain drugs, they get bumped up into a new category where you actually have to pay more. And yeah, that's kind of crazy. That
is weird.
It's different. So if you're buying generic everyday drugs, blood pressure medications, things that are very common, they're going to be like the lower tier, right? Because they're dirt cheap, they're generics and all that. But some of these more expensive drugs, things like cancer drugs, things like some of the diabetes drugs, they're kicking these things up in these higher.
Is that semaglutide in there?
I don't know. That's a great question. When I said that, I was like,
Because it's prescribed
yeah,
sometimes.
I bet it probably is in that higher tier, I would bet. Because that stuff is expensive when you get it, when you get the name brand, like for example, the Mounjaro, the last time I checked, that was over $1,000 a month. And so probably for those more expensive drugs, you're going to end up paying more out of pocket. And Americans do pay more out of pocket. Americans pay 2 to 3 times more than other developed companies for drugs. And once again, the reason for that's multifactorial. So, not only has insurance companies started paying less, like the price of drugs have gone up, right? And so you're getting hit by 2 things. You're having to pay more because insurance companies are paying less, but then also the cost is going up.
Yeah.
And people always ask, so why are drugs so expensive? And so this is where I try to play devil's advocate on this, because obviously, your first inclination is to say, they need to lower the price of drugs. Well, I mean, a lot of people say that. It's like, okay, drugs are really expensive. We need to lower the price. Well, there are downsides to that. I know we talked about this in one segment. It's been a while, but we were talking about drug companies, and we were talking about how in the United States, we are responsible for the overwhelming majority of development of new drugs. Like compared to other countries, like combined, like we outpace them in the development of new drugs by a large margin. Why is that? Well, because drug companies can actually afford to do it here in the United States. It costs up to billions, like billions with a B, to make a new drug, to go through the trials, to produce it, to do the marketing, do the studies to show it's safe.
Definitely.
And so if you cut the costs too much and these companies don't make any money, you are going to stifle new drug development. And that's a big deal. I mean, things like, these new diabetes drugs that were great for diabetes and are also great for weight loss. The new drug that basically cured hepatitis C, like the cancer drug my mom takes that basically is saving her life. These are all brand new drugs that were developed because companies have this ability to upfront the cost to develop something new. I mean, drug companies make a lot of money, but they also outlay a lot of money as well. And I'm no fan of drug companies. I don't own stock in them. I have no ties whatsoever to drug companies. But
This isn't a paid advertisement.
no, it's not. I mean, but I see the big picture. I mean, it does cost a fortune to develop a new drug. And a lot of times when you start to make a new drug, it doesn't work, or maybe the side effects are too bad, and you may have spent, $100 million on it, and it's not going anywhere, and you have to eat that.
Maybe that means that that increase, there's some of the bigger drug companies, they are developing some really
surely.
awesome stuff right now.
I'm sure they are. I mean,
And they
you
just
could
need
probably,
the funding to get it there.
Yeah, I mean, and we just talked about one, what was it, last week or week before? We were talking about that new triple action GLP-1 agonist.
Yeah, the one we're like, that'd be cool if we took a pill that made us lose fat and gain muscle. At the
right?
same time.
I know, right? So yeah, I mean, they are developing new drugs because,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure that there is some altruism in it. They want to cure these problems for people, but also there's money in it too. If you come out with the next semaglutide, your company's going to do really well. The other reason drugs are so expensive are due to the regulatory and marketing expenses. Like the approval process to get drugs on the market is
Very hard.
insano. Oh, it's enormous. The Food and Drug Administration, obviously wanting to keep people safe, has all of these hoops that people have to jump through, which cost a ton of money. Patent protection is a thing in the United States, right? So that's not necessarily a thing all over the world. If a company makes a new drug, they have a patent for, 7 years?
And then a generic
Yeah,
brand
I
can
think
come
it's
out.
7 years. So for 7 years, nobody can copy that. And so that increased costs, right? Because they don't
Yeah.
have competition for the
They
first
have
7
a
years.
monopoly for 7 years.
Yeah, but what it does is that incentivizes people making new drugs. It's once again, if you take away their ability to make money, then you are going to potentially limit new drugs
Yeah.
coming out.
Definitely.
There are limited competition for certain drugs, which means some of the more rare drugs, like some of the cancer drugs, because of the cost to make it and because there's so few people that might take it because it's a really specific cancer. I'm thinking like the drug my mom takes, for example. There's not any competition. There's
Right.
one person that makes it, so they can kind of set the price. High demand. There's many people in the United States that are on multiple drugs and they have to take them.
Yep.
Right? And so if demand is high for something, cost is going to be high. And then finally is the lack of price regulation in the United States. We don't price regulate our drugs. I don't know if it's true that we don't do it at all. I don't think that there's a lot of price regulation on drugs.
I have no
There's always
idea.
talk about doing it, but there's not. Versus in other countries, there's big price regulation. But then again, you look at the United States and how many new drugs in the world are made in the United States, and I don't remember the exact number, but it's an insane amount. Like we outstrip everyone by a huge number. So, the next question when you hear about these drugs is like, how do you fix these problems? I mean, I know there's people out there that probably stress about, paying their copays for prescription
Yeah,
drugs and
that's
their
scary.
drugs that they have to have. Yeah, I mean, it's totally crazy. I mean, and I've said this about other things that we've tried to solve. I mean, there's no easy answer for this. I mean, you can start to dig into like regulation and stuff, but then what is the downside and is that worth it? I mean, would you as a person, and I'm asking to both you guys, would you be willing to see, a 50% decrease in the cost of your drugs if it meant that we had
It would take
20%.
10 more years to come out with
right.
another drug.
Yeah, would you take half the cost of your prescription drug bill if it meant that we only got 25% as many new drugs in the next decade? I don't know if I would take that personally. I mean, obviously that's not the best question for me because I'm not taking a whole bunch of prescription drugs.
Me
If you
either.
ask somebody that's taking a bunch of prescription drugs and that they're struggling to pay those bills, they may say, yeah, I would take that. Obviously, I'm struggling to even survive right now. But, that's not everyone's in that position. I think one of the big things that no one talks about, or maybe some people do, if we want to make drug costs cheaper, is to lower demand. And I think that one of the best ways to do that is to make ourselves healthier.
Yeah.
Like
Prevention.
compared to the rest of the world, the United States is in terrible shape. The levels of obesity, hypertension, diabetes are worlds above like Europe, for example. And you see that when you go to Europe. I mean, more
definitely.
people walk over there. The food's different over there. And I think in general, I mean, and I'm really pro-American, yay America, but like we're terrible as far as like our health.
Definitely.
And we're also super independent. We don't want to go to the
Stubborn.
doctor.
Yeah.
We don't want people telling us what to do. I mean, so it all of that together makes for a very interesting problem of, drug costs are high, and they're not not getting any lower. In fact, they're outpacing inflation, and it's a problem for some people.
Yeah.
You got a solution?
It's a seller's market.
It is a seller's market.
No.
I don't either. I mean, the only thing I come up with is, I
Be healthy. If you don't want to pay a lot of money for prescription drugs.
Well, and it brings up the question of could you incentivize people to be healthy by having them pay less for certain necessary things? I mean, to a certain degree, health insurance does that, but not as much, I think, but I think that might be a way. I mean, in a way, you're punishing people, but I don't know how else to do it.
Like a rewards program?
Huh?
Like a rewards program?
I don't know. I mean, I think that you have to do something about the overall health of Americans. We're not in good shape, and we're getting worse.
Mm-hmm.
Every year, the numbers get worse for these things. And it's how do you fix this? I mean, how in the world do you get a group of, independent people who don't want to listen to anyone and make them healthier?
Yeah.
I don't know. Thoughts? Travis, anything? We're struggling out here.
I'm struggling back here too.
I know. I mean, this is a big question. If we could solve this, we'd be the next millionaires, I guess.
I think Sarah had a good point. Just try to be as healthy as you possibly can.
Yeah.
Everybody don't get that luxury though, but
I know, right? And it's hard for people. I'm not just saying go out and be healthy.
But I feel like I think the thing that makes America different than other countries is what is our main goal in life?
I think that's different for every person.
But I feel like Americans are our main goal is to make money.
I would say that's probably very true. We are very commercial.
And Europe, I don't think, I'm sure it is a very high priority, but I think there's just more living.
Yeah.
That's how I see it over there. And America's more we don't have any time, we just have to make money, and my health is down here.
That's
money
true.
is up here.
Okay, I totally follow you now. Yeah, I agree. It's so people are more concerned about working and make. I mean,
so they put everything.
Dude, that's totally me.
Yeah.
I mean, you guys know I work all the time. I usually work 7 days a week, and I got home last night, and I wanted to go run, and I was like, you know what? I'm just beat. I just got home. I need to start dinner and doing stuff around the house. I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
But I got home late. It's if I had got home at a reasonable hour and had more time in the day, I probably would have done it. It's because when you're super busy, you start to cut out things, and a lot of times, your health is whether it be working out or whatever.
Working out, cooking food at home.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
those two things always go when you don't have enough time and you have to put your schedule of making money above
right.
it.
Well, yeah, and it's okay. And it's last night I had to prep for the show because I have the side gig that I'm doing. Right. It's I'm doing this because I think that it might be beneficial down the road. I mean, I like doing it, but it's I have all these things that I'm doing that are work oriented, and it does affect what I can do on a day-to-day basis.
Definitely.
I've been meaning to clean out my closet for 6 months, and it's just down at the bottom, right? I didn't really have to do with health, but it's
there's so many things I've been meaning to clean out.
Yeah, my list of things to do is enormous, and if I get to cross one off, I'm
and there's just 20 more.
Yeah,